A Funky Day at School, Part 2. As a result of what happened last Friday with the pep rally and all, Herbert was expelled from school. In fact, Officer Jones filed a restraining order between Herbert and Wilkdale High School, meaning he wouldn't be allowed within 200 feet of the school from that point forward. The damage done to the gymnasium from the pep rally was so much that we actually got off school for 2 days after the weekend, meaning we went back the following Wednesday. I woke up Wednesday morning and got ready for school. Today was the day before Halloween at school, so people could dress up in costumes if they so chose to. I opted not to dress up. I finished getting ready and went down the hill to get on the bus. Once I got to school, I stood in the hallway for 10 minutes with my friends. At 7:20, I headed to my first block class, which was math, with Mr. Rabbit. "Okay, everybody, get started on your warm-up," said Mr. Rabbit. I got focused and began my work, but little did I know, the day was about to get funked up a notch. About 10 minutes into class, and Mr. Rabbit was going over the warm-up. That was when it happened. A single set of knocks on the window from outside. We couldn't see who was outside pranking us, because Mr. Rabbit always keeps his blinds shut in the fall. Mr. Rabbit decided to ignore it, as he does not like his lesson plans being interrupted. It happened again. "Okay, let's just see who is out there," said Mr. Rabbit as he walked over the blinds. "Seems like no one is there. I guess this is the kind of gimmick kids do around Halloween, I guess." We sat in class for another 5 or so minutes until another set of knocks came. This time, however, they were way louder. The knocks would go on rapidly for about 10 seconds non-stop, very frantic and sporadically too. This time a few students, including myself, went over to peek out the blinds. Yet again, we saw absolutely nothing. "Okay, that's it," announced Mr. Rabbit. Mr. Rabbit walked over to the blinds and for the first time in forever opened each set of them up all the way, giving us a complete view into the outside world. I had my eyes glued to the windows the whole time, and I'm glad I did, because not 2 minutes later, I saw the same orange morph suit. That's right, the same morph suit that ruined last week's pep rally. He had the fake glasses on and everything. The figure proceeded to knock on the window in front of plain sight. Everyone, including Mr. Rabbit, saw it. The whole class pointed out the window and began shouting, "That's the same thing that ruined last week's pep rally," a student exclaimed. Right after the figure knocked, it quickly ducked behind the brick wall beneath the window. Mr. Rabbit for once had had enough. Usually Mr. Rabbit's pretty laid back, but this time he got up, walked over to the phone, and called the AP office. "Officer Jones, we have a problem." Within minutes, Officer Jones walked in. "He's outside the window, sir," said Mr. Rabbit. Officer Jones went back into the hallway before going outside. We saw him walking right outside Mr. Rabbit's window before bending over and grabbing a chubby figure in an orange morph suit by his neck collar. The funny thing about this is that Officer Jones didn't even know who was in the morph suit, but he had his suspicions. He attempted getting Herbert on the ground to arrest him for violating the school-issued restraining order, but as he did so, Herbert pulled out a pack of spray cheese from out of nowhere and sprayed Officer Jones in the eyes. "My eyes!" we heard Officer Jones scream from outside the window. Herbert ran away into the nearby Wilkdale village, where he soon disappeared into the woods down the hill. The rest of math class is uneventful. Next, I had Spanish class. Spanish is uneventful except for when I asked the teacher to go to the bathroom. As I walked into the hallway, I ran into Steve along with one of the assistant principals. They were arguing.
"Man, I already told you, I don't have fucking weed."
"Nope, you're done. You're coming with me," the AP said sternly as he dragged Steve by the wrist.
No, man. Let me go, you fucking bitch ass."
Steve squealed. Steve was dragged around a corner and his whining faded out of hearing range. As I was in the bathroom, I noticed one of the ceiling tiles was missing. It was too dark up there for me to see anything, but I certainly heard something. It was breathing. I immediately left the bathroom, creeped out, and went back to class to try and forget about what had happened. Up next, I had set. Set was uneventful except for the daily announcements. The announcements began as usual with the standing for the pledge and all of that. It was then when they were announcing the student of the week that the screen was cut black. "What the?" Mr. Mills began. All of a sudden, the screen showed a closet, and in that closet was none other than Herbert Ernie himself. He sat in a roller chair office and was still wearing the same orange morph suit. He also had 2 ropes attached to his wrist, which led up to the ceiling for some reason as well. There was also a door behind him. He looked to be in a janitor's closet, and a single light bulb with a string hung from it. That was all that was illuminating his surroundings.
"Hello, are you ready for my special surprise?"
Herbert said. Everyone, including the teacher, was beyond confused. Herbert then proceeded to stand on top of the office chair.
"Time to show everybody my goodies,"
Exclaimed Herbert as he got ready to rip off his pants. And yes, I said rip them off, because on the bottom half of his orange morph suit was a Velcro seam ready to be ripped off at a moment's notice. Oh no 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 no! Many people exclaimed while shielding their eyes. Mr. Mills was frantically trying to turn off the projector, but it wouldn't budge. Come on, just turn off, you son of a bitch! Grunted Mr. Mills in frustration. However, as soon as Herbert was about to reveal his goodies, the door in the background swung open, with the AP and Officer Jones standing right behind him. There he is! Officer Jones shouted. However, as soon as Officer Jones was about to tackle Herbert, the two ropes attached to Herbert's wrists were suddenly yanked up, and Herbert was yanked up with them, disappearing into the ceiling. No! Come on, that son of a bitch, said Officer Jones in fury. After that, the screen turned black, and the announcements were over. For the rest of set, I worked on homework for math class. Next was lunch. Herbert was usually in my lunch shift, but the school issued a restraining order kept him from coming to school, luckily. I got my lunch and sat down. Colin would sit at my table for about 10 minutes before going off to CTC for the day, and so I talked with him. Did you see the announcements? Colin asked. Yeah, I did. I'm glad Officer Jones barged in when he did, or the whole school would have been scarred for life. Nothing really happened during lunch. Next was marching band class. We had our final competition that weekend, so Mr. Burmack was extra stressed out as he sipped his coffee extra that day. Okay, gang, time to get some work done today, said Mr. Burmack with a fake smile on his face. I went to use the bathroom before we began class and went outside. As I walked to the bathroom, I noticed a small janitor's closet in the hallway. In that closet were two things. Both of them were very alarming. The first thing I noticed was the ladder that led up to an opened trap door. I could see the sky, so I assumed the ladder went up to the roof. Right on the base of that ladder was an orange morph suit lying on the ground. I knew immediately who it was. I knew I had to do something to stop him before it was too late. I was about to go up that ladder and investigate when Mr. Burmack caught me red-handed.
Nick, what are you doing dilly-dallying around? It's time to go outside and grab your instrument.
I decided not to get involved with any more of Herbert's shenanigans and simply decided to go outside and get focused on marching band. We all filed outside and got in our designated lines. It was a chilly, clear, but also windless day. We repeated our drills for a while, which was incredibly boring and repetitive.
Okay, gang, let's try that again,
Mr. Burmack said for the 25th time in a row. The scenery was also very boring as well. We were on the auxiliary field that day, and Mr. Burmack had us all facing the school, so the only view we got was of a bland brick wall. The view was bland, a little too bland. However, something soon broke the blandness and the silence. We all heard a faint coming from up on top of the school from the roof. We then saw a wide figure standing on that roof. It wore a Scout Class A uniform shirt, oversized basketball shorts lined with neon yellow stripes on the sides, as well as a pair of Adidas slides, revealing its 3-inch long toenails. That's when we realized it wasn't just any wide figure on top of the roof. That wide figure was none other than Herbert Ernie himself. He began waving his arms in the air like he just didn't care. He then began doing a sort of washing machine dance, whilst in the crab pose. What is that? One student exclaimed in shock and in disbelief. The whole class was in awe at what they saw. It was incredible how such a tiny figure so far away could cause such a big disturbance. Just then the figure retreated from the roof as we saw it begin to climb down the ladder. Okay, gang, back to work, said Mr. Burmack. We all thought it was over until the band door that we had came out of swung open. At first I thought another student had arrived late to class or something, but then I looked around. Every single person who was supposed to be there was here. Oh no, a few students said in a dreadful manner, and I don't blame them. What came out of that band room door was none other than Herbert Ernie himself.
I thought he had a restraining order,
a girl exclaimed in fear. Herbert then began doing the unimaginable. He began running as fast as he could, not very fast, across the parking lot towards the auxiliary field, screaming as he did so. Oh no 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 no! People began crying. However, just as Herbert was about halfway across the parking lot, he dropped dead in his tracks. We all muttered in confusion. Next, we saw Officer Jones round the corner of the building as he put his taser back in his holster. Herbert just laid there, not doing anything. Herbert kicked and screamed as Officer Jones wrestled him into a cop car. As the door closed, we all heard Herbert's faint and muffled screams, but they soon faded away as the police car sped off. The rest of band class was uneventful. We all thought that would be the end of Herbert Ernie. Unfortunately, however, we would all be sadly mistaken as we'd find out later that night. After band, I had history class with Mr. Prezzo, who was super chill. We simply watched a movie that day in class, and everything was uneventful. I took the bus home and just collapsed into my bed. That concluded one more, and hopefully the last, funky day at school. Later that night. It was around 5 p.m. that evening, and I was busy getting ready to go back to school. I put on dress shoes and pants, and a nice button-up shirt. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would I want to go back to school after all I've been through earlier that day? Well, that night would host the National Honor Society induction ceremony. Ready to leave, Nick? my mom said. Yep, I replied. My mom and I sped off back to Wookdale High School. We had arrived. My mom dropped me off and I entered the front door. Soon after, my friend Colin came in. We stood around in the hallway before we were directed into the band hallway and lined up based on who we sat with for the ceremony. We were forced to wait in that hallway for around an hour before we finally were filed into the auditorium, where we sat and waited for the ceremony to begin. I sat pretty much right in the front of everything. Dr. Broder began his speech about the induction process, and student volunteers lit some candles as well. The ceremony was running smoothly when all of a sudden we were all interrupted by the sound of footsteps running on a metal surface. Everyone in the auditorium was confused to a whole new level. That was until we directed our attention up. That's when we realized the footsteps were coming from the catwalk. Something was up in the catwalk. Then the unimaginable happened. We were all shocked when we saw a figure in an orange morphsuit being slowly lowered by ropes onto the stage. "Everybody off the stage! Off the stage!" exclaimed Dr. Broder. Everybody hurriedly cleared the stage. That figure was no one other than Herbert Ernie himself. How did he get out of police custody? I thought to myself. As he slowly lowered, he very slowly rotated around in circles before making a dramatic touchdown on the floor.
Hello, it's that time of the year.
Everybody murmured in confusion as Herbert began wriggling around on the ground as he said,
It's time for the caterpillar to emerge from its cocoon into a beautiful butterfly.
Herbert then stood up. As soon as he did, everyone in the audience was silent and extremely traumatized.
Shining beauty!
Exclaimed Herbert. "Oh man, he's naked!" a man shouted from the audience. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Me and everyone else shielded their eyes. It was almost like that one scene from the show America's Got Talent, where the one guy is a caterpillar and, reveals his goodies. We don't gotta talk about that though. Everything that happened after that was a blur. People began screaming, the power went out, and even the fire alarm went off, which set off the sprinklers. Now we were left inside the pitch black school, all soaking wet. It was complete chaos and everyone was all trying to get out at the same time. I had to literally fight my way out of that school in the pitch black too. I'm pretty sure a stampede occurred as well. Luckily, I was able to make it outside with my life, even though I was still soaking wet. At least 5 or so cop cars and fire trucks arrived as well, with the cops storming the building. A minute later, Herbert came out in handcuffs and was taken away by a cop car. I couldn't believe it. Herbert had just ruined the National Honor Society induction ceremony. I simply went home, changed into dry clothes, and went to bed. All I wanted was to forget everything that had happened that day. That concludes one funky day at school. Epilogue. School was canceled the following day due to the damage done to the auditorium. I decided just to take a day to relax, just to unwind from yesterday. When I turned on the TV, the news was on. I saw my school on the local news. Apparently, due to all the chaos that happened last night, it resulted in 7 people being injured and even 3 deaths. I could not believe the destruction that Herbert Ernie had caused. Now that concludes a funky day at school.